Welcome to The Explainer. You ever get that feeling that our political system is, well, broken? That it's just not working for the average person anymore? Today, we're going to break down an analysis that asks what's gone wrong with modern democracy, and more importantly, explores a powerful framework for how we might start to fix it.
Okay, so let's just dive right into the heart of it with this massive question. Is our government completely out of tune with its people? The whole argument we're exploring today is that the answer is a big yes, and that this disconnect is exactly why so many of us feel like things are fundamentally off the rails. And what happens when you have that kind of disconnect? You get widespread dissatisfaction. What this analysis suggests is that a lot of people now see the free market as, a rigged game, one that's just designed to make the rich richer. And that, of course, is fueling this deep, growing distrust in our government and all its institutions. So, to really get a handle on this, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll diagnose the problem. Then, we'll take a quick look at the history of how we even got here. After that, we'll introduce a new framework for thinking about a nation, examine its 3 core pillars, and finally ask, what comes next? So, Part 1. Is democracy actually broken? Let's dig into the symptoms of all this discontent, as laid out in the source material.
So what's really driving this feeling? Well, it's a potent mix of things. There's this sense that the government has been hijacked by powerful interests, that money that should be going to social programs is instead funding tax cuts for the wealthy. And on top of that, it feels like there's just nowhere left to have a meaningful debate. All that frustration has to go somewhere, and it often gets misdirected. So people like migrants end up getting blamed for much deeper systemic problems.
And this isn't just theory. It's had some massive real-world consequences. 2 recent examples really make this clear. Yeah, this kind of dissatisfaction doesn't just simmer under the surface, it boils over. The analysis points to 2 huge recent examples, the Brexit vote in the UK and Donald Trump's rise in the US. The argument here is that both movements were able to successfully tap into all that popular anger, but for political goals that didn't necessarily serve the public's best interest.
But how did we even get here? I mean, these issues didn't just pop up out of nowhere. To really understand the present, we've got to look at the past. The source puts our current moment in a much longer historical story of how governments evolve.
Just think about the last 100 years or so. It's been a whirlwind. We saw the collapse of old monarchies after World War I, the rise and fall of the Soviet system, and the end of classic colonialism. Out of all that chaos, modern democracy sort of emerged as the go-to model, but often without a really clear, precise definition of what that even meant. After World War II, democracy really went down a couple of different roads. In a lot of Europe, you had social democracy, basically capitalism with a strong social safety net. But more recently, that model's been challenged by this neoliberal approach, which really pushes to dismantle those safety nets in favor of deregulation and financialization, which is just a fancy way of saying turning more and more of our lives into financial assets that can be bought and sold. Okay, so that's the complex history and the modern discontent. But the analysis doesn't just stop at diagnosing the problem. It shifts gears and starts proposing a solution, a really constructive way to think about the path forward. And here's the core idea. We spend so much time debating individual issues, right? Healthcare, taxes, unemployment. But these are often just band-aids. The argument here is that we rarely step back and ask the big question, what is the fundamental model of society we're actually trying to build here?
So to get around that, the author suggests we can boil down any modern nation into 3 fundamental pillars that we have to understand and talk about together. The social contract between all of us, the economy that powers our society, and the government that's supposed to run it.
All right, let's get into the good stuff and break that down. We're going to examine each of these 3 pillars in more detail, because this is really the heart of the entire framework. First up, the social contract. And this isn't just some vague philosophical idea. It's the foundational agreement that defines our relationship with each other and with the state. And for it to actually work, it has to be based on 3 core principles for every single person: freedom, equality, and security.
Now, what's so cool here is how this makes the contract totally concrete. It's not just about what we get, but also what we have to give. We have rights, like access to education and healthcare, but we also have clear obligations, like respecting others, protecting the environment, and obeying the law. It's a two-way street. Okay, pillar number 2, the economy. And here, we're shown 2 classic polar opposite models. On one hand, you've got the centralized economy. Think the old Soviet Union, which, as we saw, often leads to massive inefficiency. On the other hand, you have a completely free-for-all market, which can easily spiral into runaway inequality. So the proposed solution is to find a middle path. An open market, sure, but one where the government plays a key role. The point of regulation isn't to kill business. It's to guarantee fairness for everyone, to prevent reckless speculation that could crash the whole system, and to protect our environment.
And for the third pillar, government, the author goes way, way back to ancient Greece to find a guiding principle. This quote from Pericles really sets the ideal, right? A democracy is where the administration is in the hands of the many, not the few, where public service is a reward for merit, not a privilege. But that ancient ideal is facing some very modern, very powerful threats. I mean, think about it. Big money flooding our elections, populists manipulating public anger, technology being used to spread disinformation like wildfire, and special interest groups shaping policy behind closed doors.
All right, so after diagnosing the problem and laying out this three-pillar framework, what's the big takeaway from all this? What's the next chapter look like?
So here's the crucial point. This framework, the social contract, the economy, the government, it's not meant to be some perfect final answer. The whole goal is to give us a model, a shared language, so we can have a much more productive discussion about what kind of society we actually want to build.
And really, that's the big question the source leaves us with. This isn't about finding one single, easy solution. It's about whether we can use clear, structural thinking like this to have better debates. And, hopefully, start building a democracy that actually feels fairer and more functional for all of us.